Sohn, and I'm here. I just spoke at an FCC Broadband workshop on the role of content in the broadband ecosystem. What it really was about how we should protect or not intellectual property on broadband and how that should be part of the National Broadband Plan. So I talked first about how when you talk about content in the broadband ecosystem, it's not just Hollywood's content. There are a lot of folks, amateurs, independents, who rely on copyrighted material and make fair use of it. And if you're thinking about somehow enacting filters or other technological protection measures in order to protect content, you've got to think about the impact on lawful and fair uses of content. So that's the first overall point I made. And I said, if the FCC is really thinking about going down the path of either permitting or, God forbid, mandating copyright filters or mandating something like 3 strikes and you're out, where your ISP kicks you off the network based on 3 allegations of copyright infringement, if the FCC is really seriously considering that, they have to ask themselves 4 questions. The first question that I asked was, where's the data? And in a nutshell, most of the independent data shows that if people are using peer-to-peer networks, they actually buy more music and more movies. And the data that the industry has put out basically is completely self-interested, not a surprise, has been challenged, and is based on the notion that every illegally downloaded song or every illegally downloaded movie is a lost sale, which of course really is a lot of nonsense. So I said, this is now going to be a data-driven FCC, and they should ask for data as opposed to what we're used to in U.S. copyright policymaking, which is what I call faith-based policymaking. We have to get away from that. That was the first question. The second question was, have you really considered the unintended consequences of copyright filters? Now, first of all, copyright filters are a blunt instrument. They can't distinguish lawful uses of copyrighted works from unlawful uses. And no matter how perfect, they're not perfect, okay? And the content industry says, well, they block 98% of content. Well, that still leaves 2% of lawful content, some of which can be time-sensitive, civic speech that gets blocked. And as such, that violates the FCC's 4 principles, which says you cannot block or degrade lawful content. There are other unintended consequences of the use of copyright filters. One is the consequence of users' privacy. Remember, these technologies use deep packet inspection, which public knowledge has talked about many times, which looks at the content of every single transmission that comes from your computer. Another unintended consequence is that it leads to an encryption arms race, which slows down the network and makes it harder for really cool new applications to come to the fore. The third question was, does the FCC have the power under the Communications Act to mandate filters or to mandate 3 strikes? And the answer is clearly no, they do not. I talked about our broadcast flag case, which we brought in 2004 and which we won in 2005, where the DC Circuit said that the FCC cannot impose technology mandates on devices that that Congress has not given them the ability to do. So I really don't think there's any question under the law that the FCC would not have the power under the Communications Act to call for filters or ISPs. The fourth and final question I asked was, okay, what are the alternatives? This is all about what you can do, not just about what you can't do. So I talked about the need for content companies to get their content widely available on the internet at a fair price with flexible use. And that's always the killer. There was one panelist from Paramount who kept saying, well, you can't compete with free, you can't compete with free. Well, yes, you can compete with free, and the music industry and Hollywood have been showing that now for the past 10 years. You can compete with free. You're not going to stop every instance of piracy, but you can still sell goods. Downloads, music download sales are up, streaming sales are up, so you can compete with free. The other thing I talked about was warning notices that say to a person who's illegally downloading, and the ISP sends it at the behest of the content company, and it says, we know who you are, stop doing it. According to Disney's head lobbyist himself, that works 80% of the time. That's pretty good, in my opinion. So those are 2 things. And the third thing that I said is a good alternative, just enforcing the law. Copyright law is really, really strong. It's probably stronger than us at Public Knowledge would like it to be. But the government can enforce it in criminal cases, copyright holders can enforce it in civil cases, and that's a good way of dealing with a lot of the problems out there. A bad way is having this sort of, like I said, blunt instrument, blunderbuss, copyright filtering at the network level. So it was a good panel, more balanced than I thought it was going to be. I loved what the Writers Guild West had to say, is that you have to preserve net neutrality and you don't want to use these overbroad technological protection measures that could upset net neutrality, which I thought was great. So all in all, a very good panel. I hope you'll watch it online, and thanks for listening.